Welcome to the Dirtbag State of Mind podcast from the Climbing Zine. I am Luke Mihal, and this is a little preseason episode of Dirtbag Classic, conversation with Alex Honnold. We are getting ready for season 8 of the podcast, and we're just kind of finalizing some sponsorship things and recording some interviews. We just recorded our first one with Ashima Shirashi, and that was such an enjoyable conversation. Really excited to share that as our season premiere. But we wanted to put something out kind of in the meantime, and with Alex Honnold's recent building solo of the Taipei building, we figured it would be a good time to share this one. Biggest thing in the Climbing Zine universe right now is that we just finished up volume 26. A lot of you know that we have been making a transition from 2 smaller zines to a bigger zine. And our first bigger zine is at the printer right now, volume 26. It's going to be 164 pages and has got some incredible stories. I think I'm more excited for this zine than I have been for anyone in our 16-year history. So really excited to share that with y'all. If you want to get a copy or subscribe, you can go to shop.climbingzine.com. And we also have some new tie-dye Send Your Face shirts. We've got some t-shirts and some long sleeve tie-dyes. Those are super popular last year. Those are going to be up for sale on pre-order by the time you hear this. So I was super nervous for this interview with Alex Honnold. It was the most nervous I've ever been, and I had to kind of think about it a little bit. First of all, I get more nerve-wracked when I have to do things over the internet, because you never know when your internet's going to go out. I live half the year in Mexico, and you never know when it's going to not work. The other part was that free soloing makes me extremely nervous. I couldn't actually watch that Taipei event live. I kind of scrolled through after it was done when I found out he did it and he was safe. But anytime I've seen someone free soloing out at the crag, or, on a big wall, which it rarely happens, but I did see someone free solo the Grand Wall one time. It was probably actually Marc-Andre Leclerc. Didn't know who he was at the time, but free soloing just makes me nervous. So I think that's really what made me nervous to interview Alex. But Alex is a true pro. If you listen to him in this interview, he had been sick the night before from his kiddos, but still rallied to do the interview. And that's something I really appreciate about this guy, because there are plenty of professional climbers, but the business side of things, the interviews, I think Alex takes that stuff really seriously, and he's quite good at it. So I try to ask him questions that he has not been asked a million times, and I think we were successful on that. And I hope you all enjoy my conversation with Alex Honnold. And we're going to be coming at you with our season premiere for season 8 with Ashima very shortly. All right, hope you all enjoy this Dirtbag Classic with Alex Honnold. I am here with Alex Honnold. How's it going, man?
Good.
Thanks for coming on the Dirtbag State of Mind podcast after doing interviews all day.
What really makes it exciting is that I spent the whole night puking and having diarrhea. I got a stomach bug from my 2 little babies. But so far, I've managed to keep it together. We'll see.
All right. Well, hopefully we can have a good time. Our podcast, it's the podcast from the Climbing Zine. So,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Why not just make it the Climbing Zine podcast?
I just kind of like Dirtbag State of Mind. We have merch that said that for a while. I like the provocative nature of the word dirtbag too.
That's fair. It's only provocative though to certain, because if you're really in climbing culture, it's like totally normal.
I feel like the word dirtbag is like this interesting provocative word. I got a chance to see your most recent film with Tommy, The Devil's Climb, and really enjoyed it. So I just want to start off with your friendship with Tommy and how many people go from having someone be their hero, like you said, to becoming their best friend. So you said you had his poster on your wall when you were a kid.
I don't know if I literally had a poster of him on the wall, but certainly, I remember the sort of iconic covers of Climbing Magazine or Rock and Ice or whatever, the one where he's like draped in an American flag. And you're just like, oh man, Tommy Caldwell is the dude. He's a little older than me, and he just was performing at such a high level so young. So it was like, by the time I started climbing, he was already the best. I was like, oh, Tommy is. And it helps that he's always been doing the things that I aspired to do. Hard routes on El Cap and basically climbing all the things that I was personally inspired by as well. So I was always like, oh, Tommy is just the dude. It's kind of just sheer good fortune that I've gotten to climb with him and become friends. We sort of partnered up for a bunch of big climbs over the years, and as a result have become closer friends, and now, just like are friends that get to climb together sometimes.
How were you guys first introduced to each other?
I don't know. Both of us have tried to remember. I think we maybe bouldered a day in Squamish one summer, but our first real thing that we did together was climbing the triple in Yosemite. So the 3 biggest walls in a day.
Right, yeah.
And that was our first real climbing together.
And that's El Cap, Half Dome, and Mount Watkins in a day.
We basically scheduled 1 week together, and so we climbed each of the routes once. So we climbed El Cap once, then Watkins, then Half Dome, and then we took a couple rest days, and then we did all 3 together. And we're like, what a good week of climbing. We just climbed 6 grade 6s in 1 week, and we're like, that's a good week.
There's obviously a difference between someone who can run up a bunch of walls with you, and I think this film, The Devil's Climb, really showcased your friendship a lot. Why do you guys connect so well as friends, beyond just being climbing partners?
I don't know. I mean, I think part of it is that we have similar temperaments in terms of not being troubled by... I don't know, we just did a bunch of interviews together for various mainstream media outlets and things surrounding the Devil's Climb film. And it was interesting hearing the two of us talking, answering questions back and forth. We just both have such similar outlooks on life, and we're both relatively positive and untroubled by circumstance to some extent. I mean, that's one of the things I've always really loved about climbing with Tommy, but I think I'm kind of like that as well. I think other partners would maybe see that in me, is that, we don't give up readily. We're always like, well, we'll just try our best and go out and do what we can. But I think that's part of the foundation for a friendship, is just that we're both positive people that have a good time chatting. And
how would you describe him?
I was thinking about this in an interview earlier, and I didn't really want to get into it because it sounds vaguely douchey, but it's actually an idea that comes from climbing with Colin Haley, who's another friend of mine who I've climbed with a lot in Patagonia. And Colin had often described some of the climbs that we did together as, if it had been 2 Alexes, we wouldn't have been able to climb it, but if it had been 2 Collins, he wouldn't have been able to climb it, but by teaming up together, we were able to do it. Mm-hmm. And, there's some objectives where you're kind of like, 2 of me could do this better, or 2 of the other person could do this better. And I feel like climbing with Tommy is one of those rare times where I'm like, it's like climbing with 2 of me. He basically has the same risk profile, the same speed, the same competence. Because with a lot of other partners, you're just like, oh, they're kind of slow, or realistically, maybe I should lead this part because I could do it better. But when Tommy takes over the lead, I'm always just like, well, great. I couldn't be doing this any better. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And oftentimes I'm like, thank God he's leading this. I had a classic example of Tommy once upon a time, one of the many random climbs we've done together. We did the first in a day free ascent of El Corazon together, the El Cap free route. And actually it was his first day in Yosemite. It was the season that he sent the dawn wall. Huh. And so he was in peak physical fitness, but he hadn't worn his climbing shoes for more than 3 hours straight in the whole summer, because he'd just been training in the gym and kind of getting ready for the dawn wall. And so we climbed Corazon in a day, and I forget, it took us 15 or 18 hours or something. It was a big long day.
Is that Go Bright and Mason Earl route?
No, they did the Heart. Corazon is the Corazon is a Huber route.
Huber Brothers, gotcha.
It's a little bit older.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit easier than the Heart route.
Gotcha.
Tommy and I actually climbed the Heart route last year. But climbing Corazon in a day, I'd already been in the valley for a while, so I was kind of peaking. I was like, oh, I feel great. Climbing Corazon was kind of the culmination of my season. It was my peak. Whereas for Tommy, it was day 1. And near the end of the route, there's this 12A pitch, is the second to last pitch at the very top of the wall. And Tommy was leading it in the dark by headlamp, and it took him forever to lead the pitch. And I was kind of like, man, what is he doing up there? Tommy is just sucking. And then, finally he finished the pitch, which he onside in the dark. It's pretty proud. And I got up there and I was like, this is really hard. I was barely able to climb it. I was like, thank God that Tommy led this, because I was like, I don't think I could have done this. And I feel like I've had so many experiences like that with Tommy, where I might have a thought where I'm like, God, what is he doing up there? Why is it taking so long? And then I get there and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't have to do this. Thank goodness it was Tommy.
Part of this whole film, The Devil's Climb, is him getting back to it. Was it kind of sobering to see him coming off an injury and be in a different state, and then you kind of maybe playing more of the leader role?
I was like, oh, it's weird to be climbing with Tommy and for me to have to wait for him sometimes. And that's not true on the bike, because overall on the whole journey, like he would drop me on the bicycle every day and I'd get totally crushed. But then in the mountains, like running around on difficult terrain and then some of the climbing, I was like, oh, I've never done anything with Tommy where he wasn't at 100%. It's like, oh, geez. But, this is how he gets back to it.
Yeah, totally. And you were like, 45 is really old to be a professional athlete. I'm exactly the same age as Tommy, and I actually interviewed him right before he had his injury. But were you guys talking about that a lot? Of like, because you're about to be 40, right?
Next year, yeah.
For me, like Steve House is kind of the guy, even though I don't do the same climbing that Steve House does. I kind of look to him as like someone who's actually talking about getting older and being a professional athlete. Is that something that you guys are like talking about together, or is it more like an unspoken thing, or?
No, we've definitely talked about it a little bit, though. Personally, I don't feel like it's aging so much. Well, I mean, it is aging, obviously, but to me, the biggest difference has felt like having kids now. Just because having 2 little kids, I'm just so much more tired all the time. It's like I sleep less, I get sick way more. I just got a stomach bug from our daughter, who probably got it at daycare or wherever. And I'm just like way more worked all the time. I'm kind of like, which is sort of by definition, like that's what ages you.
Yeah.
Kind of, I hate to say that age is just a number, but I mean, it's kind of like lifestyle stuff. And I'm sort of like, oh, I'm really getting worked from the lifestyle with the 2 small kids right now.
Well, I want to kind of come back to some of that stuff, but I want to kind of geek out on free soloing for a little bit. I like woke up this morning. I was a little nervous to like interview you, and it's like, I feel like there's a million questions I want to ask you. I've actually been trying to interview you for a little while and finally got connected through the film. You're a hard guy to kind of get a hold of.
Well, I do that intentionally. I have no contact info anywhere. I don't use social. I don't do whatever. But that's the thing, is like with 2 little kids and I'm trying to climb my best and I'm just, I don't know, it's like, yeah, you just don't have enough time in the day.
Totally. I get it. And I respect it. We can dive into this later, but you're literally like the most famous climber that has ever lived on planet Earth. That's probably a bit to it as well, but I don't want to embarrass you. I just want to kind of geek out on free soloing for a minute. How did like free soloing really start for you? Was it starting in California, like not having partners, or what is like the initial seed of you starting off with soloing?
Yeah, I mean, part of it's cultural, like growing up in Northern California and hearing stories of the Stone Masters. Like everywhere that I climbed outside, there would be sort of local legend of the Yabo roof and wherever. And you're like, oh, John Jablonski, yeah, like a Stone Master. And so you'd like hear all these crazy stories. And part of it was the time also. I started climbing in the mid-90s, and it was just a lot closer to that era. Nowadays, climbing has really ventured into different terrain. But at the time, free soloing just didn't seem that crazy. I don't know. I mean, it's just hard to explain that it just seemed more normal in a way. And so I was always sort of interested, and then I started dabbling a little bit. And part of that, again, is probably just a product of where I grew up with close access to Sierra granite. It's like great rock. It feels safe. It's a lot of crack climbing. It feels secure. It's just a good place to go soloing.
And so what are the areas that you like started off soloing at?
Well, I think my very first free solo might have been in the climbing gym, because I was working there. So after hours, you could like solo little things, but it's like 30 feet tall with padded floors. You're kind of like, actually I decked in the gym a few times with a rope on, like not free soloing, because you like blow a clip and fall from the top or whatever. And you're kind of like, well, it's padded floors, all good. My first real free soloing that I remember is at Lover's Leap near Lake Tahoe. I did a couple little multi-pitch, very easy granite cracks. But at the time I was like, this is so extreme. But I did quite a lot of soloing actually in the Owens River Gorge outside of Bishop, California, because that was also local for me. And again, there was a bit of a history with free soloing in Bishop. Like in the guidebook, there are a bunch of photos of John Backer soloing things back in the, 80s or 90s. And so, I was just like, that's cool. Like I want to do those.
I was wondering if Backer was, and I'm sure Peter Croft is in there as well as like the first. Were you seeing those guys out there soloing as well?
I only met John Backer briefly before he died, but I'd consider myself pretty good friends with Peter now. We're both sponsored by the North Face, and so I've seen him at tons of North Face things over the years and hung out with him a fair amount. I mean, Peter's he's the man. And so I actually met him in Owens River Gorge back in the day, like, when I was just some scrappy kid trying to climb 512 sport when I could. And so, yeah, I was definitely super inspired by them and by Dean Potter, people like that. Just, this whole Stone Master scene. was just like, oh, all these people are doing these incredible things. Like, I want to try to do some of that.
Going back to Backer, what kind of interactions did you guys have?
Nothing crazy. I don't think I'd done anything noteworthy yet. And I mean, he was like repping a Copa shoes at the time, this like random brand of climbing shoes. And so he hooked me up with some shoes. So maybe I'd done something, I don't know. But I can't totally remember. I just met him a few times and I was sort of like, I was too intimidated to really, it's sort of like the first times I met like Ron Kalk in Yosemite and things like that. I'd just be like, oh my God, that's Ron Kalk. And then you don't actually speak to him. It's been like
right,
years. I mean, and that's why I think, I'm actually pretty good friends with Peter now, is that I've seen him enough over the years that you can slowly get past the fact that you're like, that's the Peter Croft. And you can be like, no, that's just Peter who goes sport climbing the gorge literally every day. So it's like, it's just nice to hang out and chat.
It's really hard to be in the moment and have a conversation when you see someone and you're like, holy shit, you're that person, and like you're right in front of me,
Yeah. Though actually I do think you get better at that over time. I think I've gotten better about that stuff as you grow up a little bit and you meet more people like that. You're just like, it's just, we're all just humans just trying our best.
Well, especially climbers too. Like, I feel like I've seen you around, I started climbing in 99, and so I knew of like a pre-Honnold climbing world. I've seen you around forever. Like I said, I was nervous to talk to you. I think free soloing just makes me nervous. I started off my morning by like looking at pictures of Dean Potter and like Michael Reardon and Backer and Croft. And it just makes me nervous.
You don't solo at all?
I have in the past, but no, I don't free solo. No.
Dude, how can you embrace the dirtbag state of mind without even some casual free soloing?
I mean, I dabbled, but I think you were probably interviewed for this book, the Jeff Smoot book, the free soloing book that he did, All or Nothing or something.
I'm not sure. It doesn't. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you're in the book, but I have a super like ADD mind, and I feel like climbing really balances out ADD, but free soloing does not at all.
Interesting. What, like, does your mind feel too cluttered or something, like, or too hurried while you're trying to solo, or what do you mean?
I don't know what it is, but like I would also say, like, I could climb. I've done like some 513 cracks in the creek, first ascents and stuff, but I would say climbing, like being on El Cap and trying to free 510 like high up is like super challenging for me. I climb my best, and I'm sure a lot of climbers are like this, but I climb my best 40 feet off the ground,
Oh, that's funny because I climb my best, 4,000 feet off the ground. Ideally,
interesting.
Like basically the higher the better, because I love I love the exposure, I love the position. I kind of love the stakes, like when it starts to feel mega, then I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's why you're Alex Honnold. So meeting Peter Croft, it sounds like he was super cool with you, kind of right off the bat. Was he another like intimidating figure, or was he the nice Canadian that was a little more approachable, or?
Oh no, I was so afraid of him.
Yeah.
I mean, and he actually doesn't remember when we met the first time, but he was climbing with this guy Marty Lewis, who wrote the guidebook for Owens River Gorge, and I ran into the two of them climbing together, and I was like, oh my God, that's Peter and Marty. I was like, but I was by myself and I was trying to get a belay to try to send my sport proj. And actually I wound up sending, I think it was my first 13B with Marty belaying me. Though when Marty like offered to belay me, then Peter like took off and I was like, oh, Peter didn't get to see my first 513 send, I was so psyched. But I ran into him a few times that season and had a few conversations with him. At the time, I was really interested in the dream of free climbing El Cap at all. He was pretty encouraging with like, oh, you should climb Masterman and the Rostrum in a day as a way to sort of build the volume, like the stamina for that type of granite. I remember being like, oh, okay, well, if you can climb, Asterman, Rostrum in a day, then you're ready to free climb El Cap, because Peter said so. I was like, cool. No, I mean, he was, he was totally great.
That's amazing. And so you guys have kind of a relationship to this day. I mean, I know he's in free solo a bit when you were having your moments where you backed down and you didn't feel great about yourself. I mean, was having him there as like someone to relate to?
No,
like,
that's so helpful? Embarrassing. Can you imagine like your biggest failure of your life right in front of your childhood hero? You're like, that's so lame. No, I was mortified. We were like, oh man, I forget. I think he was in Yosemite because he was guiding or something, or he was there for some reason. And we'd climbed part of El Cap together as well. Yeah. And then I don't know. I was just like, oh God, he's there for the failure. It's like so embarrassing. But here's my favorite Peter story. Like, to his credit, one of the last times I was in Bishop last year, I discovered on Mountain Project that there were a bunch of new random 13 minuses in the gorge. Like people are steadily developing things. And I was like, oh, cool. There are like 4 or 5 13s that I haven't done before. And so I lined myself up an itinerary to do everything in the upper gorge that I hadn't done before, because that's kind of a home area for me. So I've basically done all the hard stuff there over the years. I wanted to maintain a sense of completeness. And it was like forecasted terrible weather, but Peter said he was going to join in anyway. So he showed up. And he was like, oh, no, I went hard yesterday because I assumed the weather would be too bad for us to climb, but I'm happy to hang out and belay. And then we just hung out for the day. He just belayed me through the whole upper gorge. It's like a private tour where Peter just took me to all these different cliffs. I got to climb some random new 13 minus pitch, and then we'd move to the next cliff again. And I was like, this is so awesome. I'm just hanging out with Peter for the day, just climbing new routes. It was so fun.
That's awesome. You built upon so many solos. You built upon John Backer, Peter Croft, Dean Potter. Have you guys talked much about it, what it means, and like, did he ever consider doing it himself, or did he ever think it would be done?
Are you soloing El Cap?
Yeah.
I think that was totally outside the scope of what he considered possible. But I mean, you have to remember that, he soloed Astroman and the Rostrum in 1986, I think. And in the Salothe, the first free route on El Cap wasn't even freed until the late 80s, I think 88 or 89.
Yep.
And then Lynn Hill didn't free the nose until 94, I think. And so it's just so far beyond. Peter has never even free climbed El Cap. He hasn't even done the free rider or the Salothe or anything, because that all kind of happened like after he left Yosemite.
Oh, that makes sense. Did it blow his mind? Like, have you guys talked about it, like post you doing it?
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about it, not a ton, but no, I mean, I think that of everyone on Earth, he appreciates it more than most, where he's just like, that is so cool. Because, I mean, it's just a bigger version of the things that he did. Because him soloing Astroman and the Rostrum was just so ahead of its time and just so mega. And El Cap is just an even more mega version of those routes.
And Half Dome too, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, for that matter, and the Crucifix and like all these other things that I've soloed in Yosemite are sort of all like built upon the things that he started with.
Did you ever meet Michael Reardon?
I never met him, though he was a big inspiration of mine, at the very beginning when I just thought that he was the man. Though now it's a little more complicated because I've met enough people who definitively know that he lied about certain things.
Really?
That it sort of casts a pall over a lot of his achievements. I mean, he's complicated because like he definitely lied about a handful of things he did, like for sure. Mm-hmm. But then he definitely did a lot of the things that he did. Because there's like video of him doing some things that are really hard.
Like
so he
Equinox,
was clearly,
right?
No, he didn't do Equinox.
Oh.
He posed photos on it later, but I don't think he did it actually.
Wow.
And that's what's so confusing is there are a bunch of things like that where he posed photos on things that I don't think he actually soloed. But then there are things where there's like uncut video footage of him doing the whole thing, or like people who watched him solo a whole thing where they're like, oh, that's insane. And so, he was capable of a lot, but he also lied about a lot of things. So it's just hard to, I don't know. It's complicated.
Yeah, no, I get it. And it's interesting because I saw him present in Joshua Tree like the winter before he died, and he was talking about all his solos, and he'd actually mentioned soloing El Cap as like a potential idea or whatever. Yeah, he was the first person I ever heard like really kind of mention it. But See,
that's one of the interesting things with him is that, he claims to have on-site soloed Romantic Warrior,
right?
Which there's no evidence of, and I would wager that he did not do. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting because he didn't do any of the things that would lead up to that. Because like talking about free soloing El Cap, you're like, okay, that's cool. But if you haven't soloed Astroman, the Rostrum, the Sentinel, like the north face of the Sentinel, the Crucifix, like all these other walls in Yosemite, you just can't really free solo El Cap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you might be able to, but it's like, in the same way that you generally don't aid climb El Cap unless you've aid climbed a bunch of smaller walls to learn how. It's like it's just hard to have the skills to solo a wall like that without having soloed other walls. And that was the interesting thing with Michael Reardon is that he never did any of the other walls.
Yep. That tracks. And I'm guessing you never met.
I also soloed all the classic things in Squamish, which are basically the same, like Northern Lights, the University Wall, Freeway, like all these things that are sort of like 10 pitch, 512-ish granite routes. Which are totally in line with the Yosemite experience. I'm kind of like, he didn't even, I don't know. Anyway, to me, those were all important stepping stones to get to El Cap.
Yep.
And you could probably skip a few of those, but you can't skip all of them.
Absolutely, yeah. The stuff he did in Joshua Tree is still also like Yeah, I guess you said it's complicated with his legacy, and I'm learning a little bit just chatting with you here.
I don't know. You're like, oh, it's kind of too bad because he did do a lot of impressive things too, though.
Right. Just being around Joshua Tree that winter when I was there, he was like on the scene, like you would see him soloing all the time, and it's just like crazy blonde flowing hair or whatever. But
yeah, I mean that he has such style. You're just like, what
style.
a dude.
Yeah, he was like a glam rocker, and definitely.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I was equally inspired by him. I was like, oh, Michael Reardon is the man. It was only later that as I learned more about it, that I was kind of like, oh, that's complicated.
Yeah,
but
I don't hear him come up much in conversations with you two. Maybe that's why. Maybe some other people are more aware of the history than I am, but I always just feel like he's kind of a little interesting footnote in the progression of free soloing,
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I mean, and there are, a handful of sort of, I don't want to say bit characters, but like random zany characters like that. I mean, even somebody like John Yablonsky or something, where they're like a bunch of crazy stories of him soloing and like falling off things and sticking it and surviving and whatever. You're just like, it's so crazy. But they aren't necessarily the people who are remembered as soloists.
Yeah, totally. Did you ever meet Dan Osmond?
I never met him, but again, someone who I was very inspired by as a kid. I mean, certainly seeing the Masters of Stone films and everything, I was like, oh, it's so cool. And because he grew up in Tahoe, so it was like all local for me. So I tried some of his roots at Cave Rock before that was closed, and things like that, where I was like, oh, Dan Osmond is the man.
And you did a tribute for his lover. That was like one of the, I don't want to say out of character, but like all right, I was psyched when you did that,
I mean, him speed soloing Lover's Leap, I thought was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen when I was young. But then a sponsor that I was working with wanted to do a film, and they just had this concept where they wanted to do like a funny little spoof parody thing, which isn't really my deal normally, but I was kind of like, oh, do whatever you guys want. And so speed soloed The Root in his style.
I love that. Were you like rocking out to some 80s music in your headphones, or?
I don't think so, but didn't they have a band on top, or they had the music? I forget the video. It was crazy.
You did it.
But I mean, I did The Root a bunch of times, because I think the speed record is like 4.5 minutes or something, or 4 minutes. And so you could climb it in 5 or 10 minutes up and then 5 or 10 minutes down. And then you could do, 5 reps in an hour or something, or like a couple hours. And so I did it a bunch of times till I got the time down to where I wanted.
Do you have the speed record?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And that's actually what was so interesting about that whole process, was that if you watch the video of me doing it, it looks pretty slow because I'm just kind of like climbing the wall. But I actually did set the speed record. And it turns out that in the video of Master of Stone of Dan Osmond doing it, he looks insanely fast, but he was basically just sprinting little sections for the camera. And then they like move the camera and he'd sprint little sections again. But his actual time wasn't that fast, his overall time. It's more just like in the film, it looks insane. But I was like, if he moved at that pace for the whole route, like what you see in the film, he would have done it in like 30 seconds or something instead of 4.5 minutes.
You've said that before in other interviews about, this is kind of getting off free soloing, but like speed climbing, if like ever actual speed climbing tactics were applied to El Cap, it could be climbed in like a quarter, I think
12 minutes. Yeah. No, did you, I've said this in a few interviews. I wrote this up for the American Alpine Journal when Tommy and I did the no speed record. I wrote this up. I was on a plane and I was just sort of like back of the envelope math. I was kind of interested, but I took world record running, like say roughly 9 seconds for a 100-meter sprint, and then compared that pace to a marathon, if you're running a 2-hour marathon, and found that basically the runners are moving at roughly half the pace. So I was like, okay, if you take somebody climbing a 15-meter speed wall in 5 seconds, just for easy math, even though it's like 4.5 now for men, and then you took half that pace, because El Cap's obviously a lot bigger. Like, how long would it take to climb El Cap? And it was like 12 minutes or something. I was like, that is crazy.
I want to talk about speed climbing, but I can't resist to go back and ask you about Dean Potter, because, when I started climbing, he was basically you, and then he was also flying and doing crazy things. But he was the guy, like when I first went to Yosemite in 2001 and we saw Dean Potter, and I was just like, that's like seeing Michael Jordan or something, just sitting there. Mm-hmm. Was he also in that mix of someone who inspired you when you were starting off?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because he also was, I think, in Master of Stone 5, maybe, with him speed soloing the nose. And that's definitely something I saw as a kid and was like, that is incredible. I couldn't even imagine doing something like that. And then he also had the speed soloing record and had also speed soloed half dome and had done the solo double and whatever. I mean, he'd done a bunch. Yeah, I mean, he definitely was a big inspiration, though in some ways he was like less of a pure hero, because I wound up repeating a lot of his routes in Indian Creek, and you know, he was a little bit more contemporary with me, and so I overlapped with him more and like ran into him more and climbed on his routes more. And in some ways I held him on a pedestal less than some of the other people, just because he was more readily, you know, like I saw him all the time, and you'd be like, oh, there's Dean doing a thing, and I'm going to go repeat the thing that he's trying. And so he just seemed less heroic, even though a lot of his climbs were super, super inspiring.
Yeah, totally. What did you think about freebasing?
I think it's telling that when the lead practitioner dies and then nobody else starts doing it, you're sort of like, maybe it wasn't that good of an idea. I mean, I think that base jumping, it's like a bunch of the big climbers who base jumped all died doing it, and it's kind of died off a little bit, you know, like nobody's quite as excited to take up the mantle.
Do you think free soloing, though, is really like a prolific, popular activity right now, too?
No, I think soloing has died out. But you never know. I mean, all it takes is one motivated youngster. Okay, so this is about as niche as it gets, but on some random podcast or something, I said that basically anybody who's climbed V15 or 515, that I would take them soloing. Because like if somebody's one of the best climbers in the world, then they can do an easy solo. You know, I'm like, you just can't get to climbing 515 without having the technical capabilities to solo 5.6 or something. Anyway, I was at this North Face Deepwater soloing competition in New York earlier this summer. I think the guy that won, I think he won. His name is Xander Waller, I guess. He's just like a really strong American kid, but I'm pretty sure he won, but maybe he got second or third. But he did a like Sleepwalker last year, like a V15 or 16 or something. He found me afterward, and he was like, when I sent, I was like, maybe now Alex will take me soloing. And I was like, sure, if you're here this season, like I will take you soloing if you're psyched. And so that's the thing is, I mean, there's so many really strong, talented climbers out there, and free soloing is not that hard, really. It's like if you're interested and you like it, it's like it doesn't take much to be good at it, really, because nobody's doing it. So I don't know. It's only a matter of time before somebody gets really psyched. We'll see.
I watched your Devil's Climb film, and then I rewatched Free Solo. I didn't like watch every bit of it.
You only watch the climbing. That's all I would watch.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And scrub into the end, and then you get to El Cap, and you're like, oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah,
the music, it's like the whole experience.
Yeah,
is so good.
So good. The end of it, you're like, well, maybe, you know, some youngster is gonna top me, and I guess that quote could be applied for like the next 50 to 100 years, because in the last 7 or 8 years we haven't seen much.
I think that's partially with the rise of competition climbing and everything, like the Olympics and World Cups are where the action is right now. You know, all the young, strong people are trying to do well in comps. But it's just a matter of time that some kid that doesn't quite make the national team but is still one of the strongest climbers in the country is kind of like, how am I going to prove myself in some new way, and just go out and solo hard routes if they want to.
Do you think El Cap will be free soloed again in your lifetime?
I mean, I would assume so, but I mean, I guess you never know. I mean, it's only 12D. Nowadays, people are climbing mid 515 with regularity. The technical standard is not that high, not to diminish it, because obviously free climbing El Cap is challenging, but to the world's best climbers is not that challenging. But also, very few of the world's best climbers even come to climb on El Cap. You know what I mean? Like, the people who are winning the Olympics are never coming and climbing on El Cap.
Except like Andra, huh?
Well, yeah, and he was incredible. I mean, he did the Dawn 1 a month. He almost onside the Salve. He like gave a good onside burn on the nose. You're kind of like, if Adam Ondra really wanted to free solo El Cap and set it a goal for himself, he could.
Challenge for Adam Ondra.
I'm not challenging him. He's a dad. He's like a businessman. He's got stuff going on. I don't know. He's not the world's best crack climber, but I mean, obviously he could if he really, really wanted to. Like, if somebody put a gun to his head, I'm sure he'd be fine.
I mean, he's kind of the only climber that I really follow of that ilk.
He's incredible. Though, honestly, I actually think you should follow some of those climbers more, because they're just such good climbers, and they're the people who are going to be freeing El Cap in 5 or 10 years. Certainly not all of them, but some of them are going to do incredible things outside, and it's just worth knowing like who's who. I think it's important to stay with the times a little bit. And I've really made an effort with it. And I've been kind of into it through Climbing Gold, like my podcast, like interviewing all these competitors and whatever. It's like, it really does remind you that as the sport changes, you kind of just have to keep changing with it a little bit to stay on top of what's going on.
So much change in climbing, and so much I want to talk to you about that I know I'm already not going to get to. So hopefully we can do a follow-up maybe in person someday. But
where are you based?
I'm based in Durango, Colorado.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That seems far away from everything.
Well, it's 2 hours from the creek. But I spent half my year here, and then my girlfriend is from El Potrero Chico, so I spent half my year down in El Potrero. Yeah.
That's cool. Is she from, what is it, Hidalgo, the town there?
Yeah, she's from Hidalgo. Yep.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
You met a girlfriend in Hidalgo?
I did.
Dude, nice work.
Yeah,
that's cool.
She's one of the few climbers. There's not that many climbers from Hidalgo. I mean, you've been there. It's a poor town, and they're just people that have that life aren't seeking recreational activities. But her family owns the Rancho Sendero, one of the big ranches there that people stay at. And so she kind of got mentored from another local climber and got into climbing through that. So, yeah.
That's cool.
So that transitions well into my final free soloing question. No, I've got a couple more, but so I've climbed a lot of things that you free soloed. You know, Moonlight Buttress, Salate Wall. I guess I did the Salate, not the free rider, but
close enough. Yeah.
I think Sendero Luminoso is the one that was like the most mind blowing out of all of them.
How come?
Because of the quality of the rock, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I only did the first 5 pitches or whatever up to that palm tree, but there was just one 512 like pillar pitch. I was just like, oh my God, just like imagining you free soloing that. What was the experience like to prep and free solo Sendero Luminoso? Like, did you go down there with that in mind, or did you just kind of? There's like that short video. I watched that so many times, like trying to figure out that crux move or whatever. But like, yeah, tell us a little bit about the Sendero Luminoso.
So Sendero was a specific goal where I was like, I want to go solo Sendero. And I'd been down there before and had kind of tried it. I'd climbed it with partners, and basically I realized that I was going to have to make sort of a project out of it because it needed some cleaning. Because back when I did it and when I free soloed it, it wasn't that popular of a route. And so it had fallen a little bit in disrepair, you know, where like cactuses are growing out of all the pockets and things, and like bushes are everywhere, and it's just like a little bit scrappy. And so I'd climbed it, I think maybe twice with different partners. And each time when we were wrapping the route, we spent a bunch of time like cleaning as much as we could and trying to like bring it back into condition a little. But I kind of realized that to actually free solo it, I would need like a week of designated work on the wall, both to prep the route, but then also just to like memorize moves and feel comfortable, you know, build the fitness, whatever. Actually, you know, earlier I was talking about free soloing in Owens River Gorge. So when I was young, I had a season of a bunch of soloing in Owens River Gorge where I mostly soloed all the 510s and under, really sort of like 10B and under, let's say. And then when I was older, I had another season of free soloing in Owens River Gorge because I knew that I was going to Sendero. Like I wanted to solo Sendero, and I was trying to get back into like soloing mode after like bouldering and sport climbing all winter or something. That season, I repeated all the hard backer solos in the gorge. So a bunch of like classic 12Bs and things where I'd climb up them and then down them and sort of sought out all these different 512s.
Oh, because you get it in the Owens River Gorge, you kind of go up and down, like the roots don't top out.
Some, or I'd go up like a 12C and then down a 511 or whatever's next to it, you know. It was kind of case by case, but there was one specific one that's like a steep 12B, like in a roof. And so you just went up it to the end and then just went right back down it. And so anyway, did a bunch of 512 soling there. And so I felt good, you know. I was kind of like, okay, well, I am fit. And then showed up to do Sendero. And I would actually argue that soloing Sendero was less scary than a lot of the granite solos I did, just because in general on limestone, fitness makes it feel safer. If you're strong enough, there are things to hold on to. And if you're strong enough to hold on to them, then it feels safe. Whereas with granite, you know, it's like a lot of granite pitches that no matter how strong you are, you're like, if my foot slips, I'm going to die. And you're like, well, that's just scary no matter what.
That actually does make a lot of sense. Like the free blast or something, like there's never gonna be like a crisp edge there.
Totally. Like no matter how much you fingerboard, the free blast is always going to be impossible. You know, you're sort of like, yeah, there's no way to like train for that.
Was it planned? Because there's not really like much footage of that solo, huh? Of Sendero, just that shorter video.
Yeah, it's just that short video. Yeah. And it's weird because, so when I soloed Sendero, the actual solo, I just went by myself. This is pre sort of documentary filmmaking. This is back when I would just like do stuff and then we'd go pose it for a video. I think it was 2014. Yeah. I was leading up to El Cap. I mean, I was thinking of Sendero as like an El Cap trainer. In one of my journals, I had a little list in the back that just had the initials of all these routes, but it was Sendero Luminoso, Romantic Warrior, the University Wall, and then El Cap. Like those three as sort of like mid 512 lead ups to El Cap. So eventually did all three of those and then eventually did El Cap.
When you free soloed Sendero Luminoso, it wasn't filmed.
I think maybe somebody filmed a long shot, but so I soloed it with like a little day bag on, like a backpack, because I went all the way to the top of the mountain. Right. Because from the summit, I went over through the little notch and then climbed this like, I don't know, 3 or 4 pitches of like Chaucy 510. And then that summit's, I think it's called El Toro or something, but like the mountain there. and then I just hiked down the backside. So I had like a little bit of water, I had my shoes, I had some snacks, and I just like went for a quest up the mountain. But then obviously that looks stupid in a video. And so the next day we went back, and then I refilmed on all the pitches that were easy enough.
You did that crux again the next day?
I don't think there's footage of me free soloing the crux. There's footage of me free soloing a couple of the, I don't think so. I think it shows me on a couple of the 512 pitches up higher. And I don't remember. But basically anything that it shows me soloing is stuff that I felt comfortable on and felt secure on.
I could have sworn that you're climbing the crux though in the video.
Could be, but if so, it's because those particular moves felt safe to me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because it's like we just posed whatever felt good.
Oh man, yeah, I was just up there and just mind blowing. But also, the hanging belays kind of suck on that too. It must have been nice to just blaze through all those.
I mean, the whole thing is just such a different experience when you're soloing. You just like get up the wall.
What is your current relationship with free soloing?
Still into it. You know, haven't done anything rad in a while, but I don't know. Actually, I'm not sure that's true. Part of it has just been that I have 2 small kids now, and so I've just spent a lot more time at home for the last 2.5 years, and I've just done all the things that I care about around here, soloing-wise. And I've looked at a few of the sort of like C-team objectives, you know, things where I'm like, well, I could go solo that. And then I go and I'm just like, do I care? You know, it's like, do I need to sort of scrape the bottom of the barrel for free soloing? I'm like, oh, I'll just sport climb, I'll boulder, I'll just do whatever's available. Mm-hmm. You know, but we were planning on being in the Dolomites all summer this year because that's a place that has like limitless soloing, like incredible rich soloing history and, you know, basically the things that I would be inspired to solo there. But then the trip fell apart because of family health stuff and whatever. And so, I don't know, basically I'd say that I'm still just as motivated, but just fewer opportunities.
Yeah, I don't consume a lot of climbing media just because I create climbing media, and maybe you're the same way. It's just like at the end of the day, I want to like watch The Office or Seinfeld or something versus like watch a climbing thing. But I watched that video of you with that guy Magnus, the YouTube famous guy. Has anyone ever sandbagged you that hard?
Well, I wasn't trying to sandbag him. I mean, I wasn't. And actually, I might be going out with him again this week. He texted me like we might go for another little scrambling adventure, but this time quite a bit easier and not free soloing, more like actual mountain scrambling, like 4th class up a mountain or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know. I certainly was not intending to sandbag him. It's just sometimes it plays out like that.
It just kind of happened. But is there ever been a situation where like you got really sandbagged in a situation like that?
I don't know. Not that I remember, and certainly not that I intentionally remember somebody like trying to sandbag me. But I mean, I've sandbagged myself on tons of things, like tons of things where I'm like, I'm sure it'll only take an hour, and then like 6 hours later, you're out of food and water, and you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna die up here. Like I did this new route in Angola once where I looked up at this wall, and you know I hadn't been climbing before, so I was kind of like, oh, it looks like it's about 500 feet. But it was more like 1,000 feet, and what I thought was going to be sort of like a wide crack or hand crack was actually like a 10-inch squeeze chimney thing that you just got inside. And I did a full 140 meters, like 2 70-meter pitches, like inside this fissure of doom to get to the top of this wall. And I was kind of like, well, this is way, you know, I was like, maybe I should have used binoculars or something to like look at this better, because it's like, this is terrible.
Was Stacy Bear on that trip?
Yeah, that trip.
He's a good buddy of mine, and he's contributed to the climbing zine. I think it's honestly the only pictures of you that's ever been in the climbing zine were with Stacy on that trip, maybe.
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic. Yeah, no, he came to rescue us at the top of that. I was climbing that route with a photographer from the trip, and the two of us, well, basically we just were way overdue, you know, way late, because it turned out being a lot more epic than we thought.
Man, Stacy Bear, what a good dude.
Yeah, what a dude.
Have you ever thought about when your kids will see free solo?
Yeah, someone was actually talking about that recently. I think it'll be a long time until they have any sense of, I don't even know if they'll care, you know, they'll just be like, oh, that's cool.
I mean, I'm sure they've already been to the crag and stuff like that.
Exactly.
They're going to grow up with climbing being normal. That makes sense, yeah.
Totally. And also because they're going to grow up with El Cap feeling normal. You know what I mean? Like, because I grew up with El Cap holding this almost like mythological role, you know, it's like it's just the most epic mountain in all of climbing, like this is the best. And you know, my kids are growing up with like pictures of El Cap on the wall, and I've got this like signed print from Jimmy above the dining room table that's like, you know, this cool thing from free solo. But so, you know, my daughters are growing up looking at El Cap all the time, like, oh, that's normal, that's cool.
Well, that's all my free solo questions, unless I didn't ask you something.
No, I honestly I love soloing. I mean, I talk about free soloing all cap a lot nowadays, like especially doing corporate speaking and doing whatever, like talking about the training, the preparation, whatever. But like actual climbing history, like niche climbing soloing stuff, I'm like, I love all that stuff, and it's not cool anymore. You know, like nobody does that.
What do you mean it's not cool anymore?
Well, it's like, when's the last time you met anybody who's like, oh, I've got some soloing aspiration, I want to go free solo a wall?
Yeah, but it's the thing that brought the Dawn Wall and free solo brought climbing into the mainstream, I feel like.
Maybe, but I mean, or climbing is just mainstream because gyms are so much more popular, it's more accessible, so many more people climb, it's in the Olympics, you know.
But outdoor climbing, before Dawn Wall and free solo, I feel like when I would have my relatives back in the Midwest, all their frame of reference was like credit card commercials. You know, when you see like the glimpse of like I think there was a commercial where somebody was climbing ancient art or something. And
yeah,
then,
I shot that. That was me. That was me and Katie Brown.
Oh, you and Katie Brown, right? Yeah.
Well, Katie Brown did the thing. I was belaying, but they used one shot of my face, and yeah, I was just belaying with that was a classic commercial.
And then now that free solo and Dawn Wall are in the Netflix, I mean, I guess Netflix was the thing that brought it to the world. I feel like that's the story of climbing that people know now from outdoors.
Maybe I don't know. I couldn't say.
Yeah, maybe you're like too inside of it, but from me looking in as like someone who, you know, studies climbing and publishes a climbing publication, I kind of feel like when I really think about you and climbing, the only other sport I can think of another athlete that has like changed the public perception and like brought it to such a bigger audience is almost Michael Jordan with basketball.
That's a little before my time, but I mean, I appreciate the analogy. I'm like, I don't know. Time will tell, you know?
That's just how I feel like it's been brought into the world. And it's actually, I think it's a good thing that there are these examples of real climbing achievements that people see. And I feel like you're really good on like a talk show or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I feel using
like,
non-climbing terms. Yeah, keeping it broad. Speaking in basic, elemental. Like it was a challenge, and I sought out the challenge in these ways, and whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then you're also really good at. I think I heard something for you where like, yeah, it's good to experience real fear because if you don't experience real fear, you're going to project these things into your real life, like people in an airport or something.
Totally. Yeah, you're going to be afraid of all the things that don't freaking matter.
Yeah, exactly. One, you've been a great ambassador for our sport, and yeah, maybe you don't understand the Michael Jordan. I was like a super, grew up in Illinois, really into basketball, and you obviously know Michael Jordan's impact in some ways on.
Yeah, no, I've watched The Last Dance and listened to all the.
You watched The Last Dance, yeah.
He's the man. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a great film. I'm a big Deadhead too. I saw you were in that Mickey Hart film.
Yeah, I did an interview for it. I mean, I don't think I'm like in it. I just chatted about, you know, sort of flow and sport.
No, you're in it. There's footage of you in it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Are you into the Grateful Dead at all?
No, not really. I was like, yeah, I almost went to go see him at the Sphere here in Vegas, but then I was just like, I just don't like the music. It's like too hard to get psyched.
I guess I want to chat a little bit about the Olympics because, yeah, end of free solo, you're like, where is climbing going to go? It does seem like, you know, there hasn't really been anything that topped the Dawn Wall. There hasn't really been anything that topped free solo. It does seem like the Olympics are kind of the new thing that's happened within climbing in the last 6 years. Have you been involved with it? Weren't you going to be a commentator at one point?
Yeah, I was there this year. I wasn't commentating, but I was interviewing some of the competitors and just kind of generally doing like online content for the Olympic channel and just like doing some stuff. It was cool to be there. It was pretty inspiring. I'm into it. I mean, honestly, it's just like seeing climbing grow up. And it was interesting seeing the venue had 6,500 people, I think. So it was like 6,500 rabid climbing fans with like face paint and flags and people who were like psyched. And I was kind of like, when I grew up, like you could not have found this in climbing. You know, it's like, this is a whole new world for climbing. But one of the things I actually keep thinking of when I think about the Olympics and think about sort of the rising professionalism of climbing is that you certainly must think of this because you run multiple climbing focused businesses. But I think of like the climbing world as an ecosystem, and the ecosystem has gotten way bigger. There's just more money in it. With things like the Olympics, there are just more sponsors, like different kinds of sponsors. And so you wind up with more people who are able to make a living by doing body work or like route setting or working as coaches or trainers or whatever. Like basically there's just way more opportunity within the climbing world. And I think that's cool because most of those people are all friends of mine, or in some way connected. For you too, I'm sure that a lot of these folks, like people making a living as a route setter or whatever else. It's just nice that people can make a living through climbing in a way that they couldn't in the 90s, let's say. I think the Olympics is just a great way to sort of infuse some life into the ecosystem, just like makes it bigger. And I think in a good way.
Like, I don't know how much it's really caught on within climbers, like people that climb outside. Do you feel that way at all? Or like, do you feel there's a disconnect between like people who climb outside and that's their passion, and then like the indoor Olympic ecosystem? Like, do you feel like there's a lot of crossover?
No,
do you feel like
I
they're two
think
silos?
I think that the silos are actually more around people who are old that climb versus people who are young that climb, kind of. Not that you're dating yourself here, but I think that most of the people who are resistant to sort of competition climbing and Olympic climbing and all that are just older climbers who are sort of like, oh, well, I grew up climbing with the Swami belt and that's what climbing is. And you're kind of like, well, because like all the young climbers that climb well outdoors have some kind of competitions background with it. At least they're like, they're interested.
But now I feel like the old climbers, like I started in a gym, Like,
yeah,
I don't
started
have
in gym too.
Yeah, right. So like now the old crusty climbers, we still are connected to the gym, Like we didn't.
Well,
we
that's why I think there's less disconnect than people might think. It's like, it's all just climbing. And the thing is nowadays, like if you want to be one of the best climbers in the world, you have to climb in the gym all the time.
Totally. Oh man, dude, I got a million more questions to ask you, but I know you're not feeling well, and you dedicated this time to me. So you're super fun to talk to, though. I know we've never really met. I gave you the climbing zine once, and you're like, "This is cool that there's like something independent in the climbing world." And I was like, "Wow, he picked up on that in like a second." So,
and while everybody else has closed or been consolidated, climbing zine still going,
still independent. Like what you're saying about the ecosystem, it's like this couldn't have existed 20 years ago, but now with the base of people that will buy a printed zine and read it and stuff, there's like enough to support it, so
totally there are enough climbers that actually have real incomes that they can support climbing
for
art
sure
projects.
Yeah, when I first started, I was like selling super cheap subscriptions, assuming everyone's a dirtbag, and then every once in a while I'd like Google somebody's address and I was like, so and so is living in $1 million home. I think they can afford the subscription. Yeah,
you're like, this guy's in a mansion in Brentwood. You're like, weird. You're like, all right.
Totally. Yeah. Man, well, pleasure chatting with you. You're super fun to talk to, and like I said, I've got like 10 more pages of questions. So
next time, when I come through Durango, probably more likely to run into you in Potrero. I appreciate it.
That was my conversation with Alex Honnold. Super fun to revisit that. As I said at the top, our two main things we got going on right now is the release of Volume 26, and you can get a copy or subscribe at shop.climbingzine.com. We'll also be doing some zine thing events. Obviously, the first one will be in our headquarters of Durango, Colorado, and then we'll be branching out and doing some other events over the course of the spring and the summer. We'll be at the Wyoming Climbing Festivals again in the summer and some other climbing fests as well. Music for this episode is by Devin Dabney. Our digital editor and producer is Chad Rich. And signing off from Potrero Chico, Mexico, I'm Luke Mihal. Peace.